Being at 6 o'clock, we'll start the meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we'll go ahead and approve the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections?
Not here.
Nope. No? None? No. Tim? Nope. Okay, with no additions, I'll take a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Ryan.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Consent agenda, is there any items that you would wish to discuss or have questions on? If not, I would take a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, visitors to the council. Brian Jack, Festival and the Park Committee.
All right, so I'm with the Festival and Park. What we're looking to do is see if we can have any fees waived, being that we are a city-funded and city-supported event, to rent out the community room at the fire department. During the cold months, we can have a 2-hour meeting, one Sunday a month. So that'd be from January till April. So during them months, it'd be one Sunday from like 6 to 8, maybe 8:30 at the latest. We would like to have the fees waived to that, if possible. And then the other thing that we were kind of wanting to do is see if we can have the fees waived for our event that we have tomorrow. That's a beer and wine tasting event. I want to say it's $200 for being charged, I believe, something like that. So I just kind of want to see if it's something that you guys would be willing to waive.
Any input, guys?
Who are you using for the beer and wine tasting? Who's quoting?
It's different microbrewers and whatnot that are coming in to kind of
But is it the liquor store?
I believe so, yes.
Or being done through the liquor
Yes,
store?
I believe so.
My only concern with waiving the fees is who's going to handle the cleaning afterwards?
We are. That's part of our agreement, is all cleaning will be done by us. That's mopping, wiping everything down, emptying all garbages, cleaning all bathrooms. Any tables that are used will be cleaned and put back where where the fire department would like us to put them, along with any chairs. Any vacuuming, whatever the case may be, will be done by our committee.
Where is your committee currently meeting for those Sunday meetings that you have?
Wherever we can find a quiet spot.
Okay.
And we've gone to Hidden Pines, it ends up being too loud there. We went to the Manor Saloon this last Sunday, and it ended up getting loud there. Nobody really has a big enough space in their home to hold 12 people.
Yeah, we have
No.
committees that do meet here in the chamber or in the old room. Would those facilities work just as well for you?
Yeah, those would work just fine too. It just needs to be a small space for approximately 12 to 15 people on a Sunday evening from about 6 to 8, maybe 8:30. So that's the hardest part, is trying to get people to open up on a Sunday for us.
Yep.
You know? So
Would
that's
we
what
be able
we're...
to do that here?
Yeah, I mean, I think consistency is the real key here, but
The thing is the cost, because we charge for this room too. So it's up to you guys whether you want to charge them.
Right.
Well,
And so it would be the same thing. Are we going to charge them for this room, or are we going to charge them for the community?
Right.
well, like, this room, we'd let the chamber use for their monthly meetings for free
During the day,
during the day.
while we're here.
Yep.
They would
Okay.
need key to get in on.
Right, because it's on Sundays that we hold our meetings, because everyone has, jobs and families, and we try to keep it strictly on Sundays if we can. I mean, if we have to change it, so be it, we can look into that.
Well, so technically you're a nonprofit of, right, the
Yeah,
festival, so you're not technically a city. I mean, there's funds that you have available that we don't, the city doesn't have availability to, if I'm correct. I ain't sure, but,
You guys should
okay.
have
I mean,
access
they have
to
other
funds.
fundraisers they do.
Yeah, there's a
Other
fundraiser.
Yeah, we do have a few fundraisers that we do to try to get a little bit
So-
more money.
So, so that goes back to, normally we charge any nonprofit, because you're not a city board, because if it was a city board, that would be, all city boards are run through the city council and appointed through the city council,
Okay,
is the way I understood it.
okay. Well, we're funded by you guys, and then we,
Right.
you know, you
Up
guys
to a certain
sponsor
amount.
us. I wanna say 10,000 this year, I believe. I think it's been consistent,
Yeah.
10,000 each year.
So when
Which
we
is
do-
where 90% of our money comes from, you
Mhm.
guys. You know, it's just, all the other little fees that, or all the other little fundraisers that we do, it doesn't bring in very much.
Sure.
You know, and what fees that, or what money that does come in from donations or anything like that, we try to put it towards new things for the festival, you know?
Well, we're just, I mean, it's still new in my mind, this whole renting out the fire hall space, you know.
Yep.
But so far,
Kinda new to everybody.
yeah, we've been trying to keep a consistency of any nonprofit would pay, but, you know, if we could work a way here through a city staff of getting you a key or opening for Sunday nights, I think this would be a nicer space and a little
That's
easier.
fine, yeah. I mean, anything that's quiet, that can hold, like I said, between 12 and 15 people would be perfect. So,
Linda, do we have a set fee that we charge for non-staff time to rent this facility?
We don't have anything that separates nonprofits from other groups. We just have a straight flat fee.
And what is that fee?
It's $50.
Okay.
It does seem a little goofy to fund them and then charge them a fee.
right.
Right.
And that was my whole argument too, is,
Meetings, you know, realistically, that's something we can probably work with them on, you know, utilizing this facility. I do think the consistency concern is the biggest thing, because if you're allowing for any nonprofit, even if it is one sponsored by the city, I think, that, you know, at least in part, you want to make sure it's consistent. But that's up to you as a board, you know, I just don't want necessarily to come up every meeting with a different group. I know the library does allow for meetings at the library, and they don't charge for nonprofits there.
But the availability would be the same as this, it'd be hard on a Sunday.
Yeah,
They're not open
No,
on Sunday.
I think the library, I mean, there is the availability of a separate key, because that,
They can lock the
Okay.
main doors to theirs.
Correct.
That might even be better, actually, because they can lock that out.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible.
and then, so the city is, as you mentioned, paying, is the primary donor to your organization. Are you guys still primarily using local businesses for purchasing for, like, any events that you are doing?
Yep, so for our event tomorrow at the Casson Fire Hall, all, food and everything has been purchased from local businesses in town. Yep.
Okay. Here in Casson?
Yep, from Heidi and Tammy's.
Okay.
So, everything that is gonna be provided, that's paper plates, cups, napkins, food, any other drinks, water, wine glasses were done by Castmaiser Graphics, you know, so everything's been provided in town here.
It's kind of important to, in my opinion,
Oh, yeah.
that it be kept as local as possible. Since these are
Absolutely.
the businesses that are.
And that's the one thing that we try to do on everything, is we make it so everything that we buy is within Casson. If we can help it.
So we had a discussion about the rental a couple meetings back, and I think our decision was basically everybody's gotta have the same rate unless it's official fire department business or city business. And I think we need to stick to that. I don't think we wanna start giving exemptions to anybody, because otherwise it's just gonna get a mess. I do think that, you know, given that obviously we fund them, that we should help them find something more tenable, but I don't think, especially since we've had a lot of people interested in the fire hall, we shouldn't be filling up spots that aren't gonna be paying the fees.
I would think this is something we're gonna have to come back and discuss more, being it was brought on, you know, put it on the agenda and get some more information from staff, and so right now, we'll wait
Kind of table it for now?
for now,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine,
Because
yeah.
we wanna make sure that we get a chance to talk with staff and
Mhm.
check everything out. And-
Sure. And I can always come to another meeting and talk more if you guys would like me to.
But yeah, I am definitely interested if we can make a way to work with the library or the chamber here for your meetings, because for that few people, I think this would be a nicer space, or the
Yeah,
library.
Absolutely.
That's something,
You think your committee would be okay meeting in a facility like this or at the library if it's available?
Either one, yeah.
Doesn't cost
I
anything.
mean, we don't bring any food, and few of us might bring a couple of bottles of water, that's about it. And we put all chairs back where we find them, we don't make any messes, you know what I mean? It's,
yeah.
so it's just a quiet space to go over the agenda that we have to go over, you know?
All right, thank you. We will put it back onto another agenda and get back with some more discussion for it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was the only visitor. Mayor's report, I just got one thing. It's a certificate of commendation for the wastewater treatment facility operational award presented to Casson Wastewater Treatment Facility and its staff in recognition of exceptional compliance with its Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, NPDES, and the SDS wastewater permit during the 2024 review. So I'd like to thank the staff out there for doing a good job, so if you want to give that to them. Sure. And that is all I had for mayor's report. I have no public forum cards, so public hearing, TIF hearing for Fourth Lane Flat Apartments, so that's Mike Bubani, please.
Good evening, council, and new Mayor Egler, nice to see you in that spot. I struggle with TIF presentations because there's always a mix of audience members. Many on this council are grizzled veterans, and then there's probably some here that don't know what we're talking about. So what I always like to do is start from the 30,000-foot view and then kind of get more detailed. If I'm going beyond your ability to bear my presentation, just start giving me the sign and I'll wrap it up. So for the benefit of those that are not familiar with tax increment financing, all we're doing is redirecting new property taxes that are being generated by a development to assist that development that otherwise would not occur. So the way I usually present it to people on a real simple basis is you could do nothing and you could get nothing, or you could establish a TIF district, and it doesn't cost the current residents and taxpayers anything to do it. But at the end of the deal, all of a sudden you'll have new tax base you wouldn't have had otherwise. So when we establish a tax increment financing district, the property taxes that are calculated and collected doesn't change. It's the same as if there wasn't a TIF district. It's just that when those taxes are collected and then they go to the county for redistribution, they're isolated. The new city taxes due to the development, the new county taxes due to the development, and the portion of the school taxes from the development get set back to the city under a separate line item, and the city will create a separate fund to flow those revenues. And then we find a way to use those dollars to assist the developer, to help them pay for project costs. There are different types of tax increment financing districts. The one we're talking about tonight is a housing tax increment financing district, obviously for housing projects. It is a maximum of 26 collections of tax increment 26 collections of tax increments. And the way that works, it's actually longer than 26 years in duration if you were to go the full life. It's because if you build something today in 2025, it doesn't hit taxes this year, it doesn't hit taxes next year, it hits taxes in 2027. That would be year one, and then 25 more years after that. We don't always use the full life of the TIF district, which I'll get into in a bit, but that's the maximum you can do. Now, in a housing TIF district, the developers have to agree to abide by income limits. There's different income limits required. For sale, subdivisions have different limits than rental. What we're talking about tonight is rental. We're talking about a 39-unit apartment complex and potentially 4 rental townhomes next to it. And a portion of those units are going to have to be reserved and rented to people that are income qualified. There's 2 tiers One tier is 20% of the units have to be rented to families that are 50% of the median income, adjusted for family size. The next tier is 40% of the units at 60% of the area median income, adjusted for family size. We're probably talking 30s and 40 thousands of dollars kind of incomes, if you're wondering what that means. Now, we take the number of units times the 20% or the 40%, and sometimes you get like 17.3 or 18.6. You have to round up, right? You can't reserve half a unit. And that compliance has to be made annually, unlike for sale units where you only have to deal with the first sale. In these rental housing TIF districts, there has to be an annual certification. Now, it doesn't mean if they fail to certify in any given year, you have to unwind the entire deal. It just means they don't get paid that year, right? You would just hold off, and there would be no catching up. If they lose that year, they lose that year, right? So there is a bit of an administrative burden for staff in terms of collecting those certifications each year. So in your packets is the TIF plan itself, and one of the items that I usually present is that in Section 7, there's a budget, and I budget this thing based on the full 26 collections of tax increment financing. It's $2.173 million is expected to be collected over the 26 years. In the TIF plan, it also talks about authorizing bonds to be issued in the amount of $1.32 million, but we have no intent of issuing bonds. The only reason that is put in the TIF plan is, think of the TIF document as a authoritative document, meaning we can do whatever in the TIF plan, we can do whatever in the TIF plan or less, but we can't do more. And so if I don't put that language in there now, and then something 2 years from now happens, and for some crazy reason I can't think of, you say, hey, Mike, we need to issue bonds in that TIF district, you'd have to hire me to come back, do another public hearing, do a modification, so I just put it in there. We'll never use the authority, but it's there if you need it. Then, we can go through all the sections, we won't, but just skipping back to the exhibits, oh, there's the budget. Who's handling that? Is that you, Linda?
Ian's got that right over there.
Ian? You started on the exhibits, let's go back to the exhibits. You're doing a bang-up job. You can skip the map. Okay, right there. So when we establish a TIF district, we freeze the market value that's there today. So any property taxes that are currently being collected will continue to be collected and distributed to the city, county, and school as normal. So that's basically an exhibit showing you what's there today. So that will be the base that we cannot touch. The next exhibit, Exhibit 3, is basically a projection of the tax increments to come in over the life. And so you'll see the original tax base compared to the new tax base, multiplied by the applicable tax rates. The city can withhold up to 10% for administrative purposes, and we intend to do that. Doesn't mean you're going to spend it, it just means you're going to reserve it. And then on the far right is the estimated revenues that potentially could be sent back to the developer. So if you look at that over the life of the deal, $1.956 million in potential developer payments, and if we back that out with interest, the present value of that's $1.1 million in the bottom right-hand corner there. Again, this is based on a full 26-year life TIF district and the entire budget. And as you're going to hear in just a minute, we don't intend to go that far. This is just the max. Exhibit 4 is an exhibit that basically said, hey, if this thing could be built without TIF and it was just magically there today and it was helping to pay the taxes, how much would the tax rate go down? And you can see on the right-hand side there, it would go down by less than 1%. So in the grand scheme of things, this is not, huge dollars. Well, it might be to the individual developer, but in terms of municipal finance, it's not a big thing. And then finally, this exhibit here, this is the one I always tell council that I call kind of bogus. It's an attempt to say we're doing better for using TIF than if we didn't. So what we look at is what's the increased market value, less the present value of the gross tax increment, and compare what's left to what might happen if we did nothing. And we make the finding in the TIF plan that if we did nothing, the property would just sit in its current condition for a number of years, and the only benefit we would get is the inflationary value on the property. And so what it's showing is that despite the use of TIF, we're gonna end up with more market value than if we just did nothing, okay? And the reason I call it bogus is because it's pulling numbers out of my ear trying to make this finding, so. I think that the concept is true, it's just the numbers being used is completely, you could argue them all day long. Okay, so that's the TIF plan itself, so getting into the development contract specifically, so 504 Ventures LLC is the developer, 39-unit apartment complex. They want to get started yet this summer, they should be significantly completed by next year. Potentially, they'll do those 4 additional rental townhomes, although we're not going to require them to do so. It's just if they want to, they can include it in here. They have to certify by January 15th each year, on forms prescribed by the city that they're meeting the income test. And then provide the city copies of paid invoices, to the tune of $650,000. So if you recall on the Exhibit 3, where I said the present value was $1.1 million, we're only doing about half of that. And in turn, instead of doing a 26-year TIF district, the contract would only be for 12 collections. And so the way the contract will be worded is that we will continue to pay them 90%. Remember, we keep the 10% for admin purposes. We'll pay them 90% of the tax increment if it comes in each year for up to 12 years until either the $650,000 plus 4% interest has been paid, or until the 12 years are up. So if increments come in like hotcakes faster than I expect, and we pay them $650,000 plus interest in 7 years, we end the deal in 7 years. If we get to year 12 and we haven't paid the full amount of the contract, we still end the deal and we're not on the hook to make up any shortfalls. It's basically, if you build it, pay your taxes, those revenues come in, we will pay you 90% until those things occur. There's no risk to the city here, okay? If there's any losses, it's borne by the developer, okay? This is called a pay-as-you-go situation. All right, I'm starting to see crossed eyes. I'll stop there and see if I can, just about as fast as I can do it, and take questions.
You said the townhomes are optional,
Correct.
so was it 39 units apartment building and was it like 4 townhomes?
Correct.
So if they choose to do the 4 townhomes, the number that have to be income-based increases with those 4, right?
Right, so our 39 units would become 43.
And what would happen if, say, they built the townhomes and actually wanted to sell them instead of rent them? Would they get kicked out?
We should kick them out. And that's handled just by simple resolution, and I can prepare that for you, no cost. And then they just don't get the benefit of the TIF on that particular parcel.
Okay.
Does the income-dependent requirement stop at the end of the TIF term?
When their contract is over, they are under no obligation to continue the income compliance, and at that time, we would likely decertify the TIF district.
And then you mentioned that Ian is going to be the lucky soul that collects.
Well, I implied it, I don't know who's in charge, but yeah.
But
Between Ian and Linda, I'm sure they've got him, right, Linda?
I can't believe I've never asked you this before, but so is it just we rely on the word of the property owner?
You should do some due diligence and ask for additional information. Sometimes what they'll do is give you a summary of units and they'll just certify it, so at least you have documentation that if it ever proved to not be true, there's a lawsuit there for you. Or you can go as long of the rubber gloves as you want to wear and require, 1040s for each unit.
Okay. It never dawned on me before, so I given the other
Yep.
TIF properties, that I should have asked that before. Okay.
Typically, in the past, that's what we've done. So, for example, with the assisted living facility, when they were getting that TIF each year, Nancy was doing those verifications for them.
Okay.
She was checking on it, and they were giving a certification that they had this number of units and that sort of thing, so.
And the way the contract would work, if, the development agreement has been, I should call it the TIF agreement, has been crafted. In the back is an exhibit called the TIF note. So while, tonight, if you approve the development contract, you can go ahead and have that dated and signed and have the developer sign it. The TIF note in the back, you don't date and sign. That doesn't get delivered until the apartment building is completed. And then when we date and sign that to them, that's the day it starts to accrue interest. I don't think it's gonna be a problem, but just in case they can't come up with $650,000 of eligible invoices, I just can't see that being the case. Let's say they could only come up with $500,000, then the note is $500,000, $650 is the max. That's not gonna be a problem, but I just wanted to let you know.
Any other questions for Mike?
So, I would advise soliciting any public comment if there is any, and then after the hearing is closed, there's two actions. One is the resolution authorizing the establishment of the TIF district, and then the other one, which can be done motion and a vote, is simply to authorize the mayor and staff to sign the development contract.
I do have one question. First time dealing with TIFs. Doomsday scenario, is there any way it can fall back on the current citizens where they end up getting hurt by it? Or adversely affected by it?
My gut's telling me to tell you no, but I'm trying to think of a real bad situation. Let's say they start building the thing and they're halfway through, and then they crater, and now you've got a half-built building. Now, there's no risk to the residents in terms of their taxes, but you got this eyesore.
Sure.
I mean, I suppose that could be the worst case, but I expect the bank, the lenders are gonna require, performance bonds and whatnot to make sure it's built.
But that's a risk that would be inherent with just about any development.
Correct.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mike?
I should also add, just for the benefit of the public, that while I said we're foregoing the new city taxes and the new county taxes, if you listen closely, I said a portion of the school taxes. So the school district actually has two types of taxes. They have their tax-based taxes like the city and county. We don't even necessarily get to collect all of that. Anything that's for general operations is untouched. But the main piece of the taxes that are untouched is the operating referendum money. So city taxpayers are school taxpayers, and so you will benefit from some tax base day one, and that's that operating referendum money. And then I think if you were to ask the school, they're probably more interested in new kids in the school district more than they are the property taxes themselves.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so. Sorry.
No, thank you. If we have no more questions, I will open a public hearing. So if there's anybody out and have any public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address. So, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And now, staff discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts, ideas?
No, looks good. Let's get that current empty spot there built. Is there still a pile of trees there?
Because it's still in the building stage, yeah.
I know the only question that I had from the, and it's not entirely germane, but it is to the construction, we did have questions from the school related to parking. And so that is something that we'll take another look at, but it won't affect the TIF itself, but the construction itself. So we may have to take a look at parking from that corner, maybe towards the school. We may eliminate the parking on the street there, just because the school's very concerned about that 40-minute period from 7:30 to 8:15 where it's gonna be busy up there.
Well, and afternoons.
Afternoons more
And the
so.
afternoons.
Afternoons is even bigger.
I think that'll be the thing.
And,
But you've got so many kids walking
Mhm.
from elementary and middle to the high school.
Sure.
that-
and the other, sorry,
That's it.
the other comment I had, and was brought to my attention, was it is due to the construction, not to the TIF, but when we come out, they're coming out on the 5th, we gotta look at some way to make sure that pedestrians are safe on that walking path. That's been
Yeah,
brought to
those
my
are
attention.
different, those are
But those are,
different construction
yes.
issues that we'll deal with at a
Yes.
staff level if we can.
but those were just comments that were brought up. All right, well, if there's no other discussion, we'll take a motion to approve the resolution for the TIF district.
Make the motion to authorize the approval of the TIF district.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then, you said we need to authorize staff and to sign the contract?
Mayor and staff.
Mayor and staff to sign the contract. So I would look for a motion to authorize the mayor and staff to sign the contract with the builder.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right,
Anything else you need me for tonight?
I don't think so.
We always love having you come visit, but I think we're okay.
Thank you, Mike.
You better get out of here before they do come up with something.
Yeah, run now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Up next, committee report. This will be for Ian, with the Rev meeting flyer that's included in your packet.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about that briefly here. Next week, April 17th at 6:00 p.m. right here in the council chambers, we're having a special event for the Rev program. There's going to be a few folks from the U of M extension coming here and going through kind of an exercise to help us evaluate the impacts of the Rev program that have made so far, and then the ultimate goal is to do it again kind of towards the end of the 3-year program to evaluate all of the things that have happened since then. So all council members are invited to attend. It would be very nice if you could be here and share your input. I would appreciate it very much. Just if you would be able to let me know ahead of time, because we are planning to provide a dinner. So yeah, just send me an email if you're able to attend, please. And then furthermore, with the Rev program, we are working hard on scheduling the workshop series that's going to be happening this summer. So in collaboration with the Rochester Small Business Development Center, we're going to be having 6 different workshop sessions starting on June 11th and then continuing every other Wednesday until August 6th, and they're going to be all different entrepreneurship topics, so like business plan development, how to start your business, cash flow and funding and marketing, all good things. And then additionally, we'll be having some time built up for the Rochester SBDC to have one-on-one hours as well. So that's what we've got going on. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Just on one thing, if council is planning on going on the 17th, please let Ian know, and also let staff know, in case we have a quorum, we'd like to make sure it's posted.
Yep.
And I will be there.
Good, thank you.
All right. If nobody has any other questions for Ian, we'll go on to old business. In your packet, you got the Fire Corps Auxiliary Manual.
So, yeah, including your package, you've got that, we had a first look at it, kind of discussed it a little earlier in our last meeting. The fire chief's here today, thankfully. Thanks for coming, Joe, to answer any questions. I know there are a few questions that different people have brought to my attention, so certainly, you know, if those aren't brought up by the council members, I'll bring those up myself. So, with that, I guess it's, maybe, Joe, would you like to introduce what the reasoning behind this is, and kind of tell us what's your thought process and kind of where you want to go with this?
Yeah, so over the years, we've had community members reach out that have been interested in volunteering, but volunteering more on the support side. Not necessarily looking to be full members of the department, but, you know, how can we help and do some of those kinds of things. There's fire departments across the state that have fire corps programs like this, where they basically task these individuals that would be a part of this group for basically the non-emergency type things that we do. So fundraising, education stuff within the community, different events and stuff that we have. You know, so like our pancake breakfast that we just had, you know, the fire corps would be a larger player in that, in helping, you know, set that up, run that, you know, plan it, make sure that we've got everything set up and ready to go. What that also does is with a group like this, it takes a little bit of the burden off of the active members. We've got a pretty busy group, that run a lot of calls. And when we're busy running calls, the last thing some of them wanna do is have to stand behind a grill and cook burgers and brats and some of that kind of stuff, so, we can task that fire core group, to help and assist with some of that kind of stuff, so. But yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Joe, forgive me, I did read this, but I don't recall seeing, is there a minimum age?
18.
It is 18, because you had talked in the past about this being a gateway, is the wrong term, but a way of
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than, like the youth program that we would try and start, yeah, yep, so yeah.
So this would be a city board then, because it's a city fire department? So it's no, you know, I'm like, we have the city EDA, the city park board, city library board,
This would be a group that would be basically an extension of the fire department.
but so it still would be a city board then?
Yes, absolutely, yep.
So on that note, one, you got an even number on the board, and you would need an odd number, so you could have a majority vote, just like...
There's 4 members plus myself.
Well, it just listed 4, it said.
Yeah, it doesn't list me.
Okay. And if then a city board, all board appointees would go through the city.
Well, it's not a board, it's a function of the fire department. It's not a separate...
Well, that's how I read it, it's a separate board, just like the park board is a function of the park department. It goes through the park department.
It would be like the Relief Association. It's a function and an arm of the fire department, not...
Are they gonna be bonded like the Relief Association is?
No.
So then what would that then it would come back onto the city for insurance.
Right.
So they're not bonded through the fire department, like the relief, then they're through the city, so then they'd have to be covered under the city insurance, so then that's why we're looking at covering who's on the board, through recommendations, but it'd be like any other board members.
I think you're confusing the board. It's not, there is no... The board is to simply look at and handle some of the, paperwork, so to speak. They're not, at the end of the day, this group runs through me. I understand the liability issue, and that's why there's questions and there's things in here about waivers and different things like that, because they are ultimately a volunteer group. But I also understand that, yes, they are going to be, in the building and in the function and, speaking on behalf of the fire department, which is in turn an arm of the city, so. But
And it does say we still need to accept recommendations from membership, correct?
What's that?
In the guidelines, it says that we would still be the ones accepting
Yeah, everything, it would just be like, I make recommendations to you for adding members. The group would do their interviews and make their recommendations to me for members. They'd still have to pass background checks and all of that, like a member does. And all of that would come to you for approval. Yeah, everything would still get run like adding and subtracting members does right now through everything gets as a recommendation to you guys.
There's no pension for this, correct?
No.
If someone is on this, in the program, and then chooses to join the department as a full volunteer, do you count those years of service in the fire corps, or no?
No.
What would this group potentially be voting on?
This group?
Yeah, are they doing any voting? I don't,
No.
no.
Would it be funded through the existing fire department budget?
In the Relief Association. The goal is to have the Relief Association fund it.
Okay.
Would they be supporting, the pull tabs initiative that you guys have going, that you were starting?
Yeah, they would support everything. The function of this group would just to be, added members to, non-emergency type function. So they would support everything that we do.
Anybody else got any questions? Brian or Paul?
I don't think so.
Not a question so much as, sometimes it says CORPS and sometimes it spells crops.
Oh.
It does.
So I was just, I know that's more clerical, but just so you know.
Yeah, I didn't proofread it.
Yeah.
There's a
I'm a
lot
math
there.
teacher, so I don't usually worry about that kind of stuff, but I don't know how officially you want it to look.
Well, it's not, this is
Yeah.
still,
This is
I
stage one.
assume we'd have some changes after you guys had questions, so.
Joe, did you have, the basis for this document? Did you get this draft from somewhere else, or was it recommended by the Chiefs Association, or where did you pull the packet?
I believe so I let the four-member group, committee kind of put this all together. I believe they pulled it from a couple of different, I know, the SBM Fire Department, has one of the largest fire corps in the state. I know the National Volunteer Fire Council, is where I directed them to kind of go. There's a lot of information in regards to, fire corps and kind of trying to get you started and get all your ducks in a row. So that's kind of where I directed the committee to start with putting stuff together, so.
Is there a question for the city attorney about liability? My understanding is you can't waiver away liability, really. People can sign it, but that doesn't stop people from suing you. Are you concerned at all about that, if it's a truly city-sponsored volunteer group that's separate from, what's your perspective on that?
Well, like our firemen, they're actually considered city employees. You can't have them waive liability. That's one of the concerns that I have.
Is there any nearby corps in our area that you know of?
Not that I know of around here. I think the majority of them, are in the cities, but I can dig that up.
Even in the cities, I could still consider that nearby.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I'd like...
So we can see how it functions there,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I can dig a couple of departments up and get that info to you.
Just curious.
Yep.
I like the concept of it. My concern is the liability piece too.
That's my
Just wanna make
big
sure
concern.
we cover our bases so that everything is done properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as I'm reading in here, you got them doing CPR and first aid, and that to me is a big liability. I know Good Samaritans and all, but if they're doing it, I want to make sure they're protected, and the city's protected, and the fire department's protected.
Yeah,
Concerns that jump to my head right away.
yeah, we would train them and educate them in those things, just like we do with the school and any other group or organization that reaches out to us. We provide CPR classes, because we have instructors within the department. They're not running calls. Like, this is 100% non-emergency. Like, they're not carrying pagers, they're not carrying radios, they're not responding, to the station. The only reason that they might even remotely be on scene is if we have a call where we need assistance from, like, the Red Cross or the Salvation Army. They could possibly be tasked to assist them with, like, a rehab center or rehab station, which in turn would be providing water, blankets, warm clothes, ice, things like that, shade, if it's in the summertime, that kind of stuff to assist those agencies in, providing rehab for the fire department.
Real quick, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm doing some super technical research using Google AI. In regards to the, liability issue, Google AI says they could become a separate legal entity and obtain a 501c3. Is that something that's possible, to keep them from being city employees?
That's probably what the Relief Association is.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
So they have that, the Relief Association.
So you're saying if this was under the Relief Association, then they wouldn't need to set up a separate 501c3, they would already be covered. But if it's under the fire department, then we would need them to become a separate 501c3, or am I being really circular?
Well, we wouldn't be able to, they would be a separate
Mhm.
501, like the city wouldn't be there.
Right.
It wouldn't be under the corporate umbrella of the city.
Gotcha.
That might be a really good solution, would be somehow, adding them in if they're, to the, Relief Association in some way, maybe even calling it like the Relief Association Auxiliary Fire Corps or something like that would be, they'd be the ones providing the bonding aspect of it, making sure that if there's workers' comp claims or something like that, they'd be on the hook for the cost, not the city per se. That might be a good solution, really, so.
That was some good technical research I did, thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
So, yeah, there's more questions to be asked down the road. I've been,
I mean, I think in concept, it's a good idea.
Yes, I agree.
If it takes a load off of the firefighters, my experience with auxiliaries was, when I was in Blue Earth, it was more of the spouses, and it wasn't really, it was more of, helping out with stuff like food and things like that. So it wasn't quite like what you're talking about, like CPR and first aid and all that sort of thing. But I mean, those folks helped the firefighters out a lot with, when they had to go out and do fires. We had we had those elevator fires, those are always the worst, because they burn and burn and burn, especially in the wintertime. Having all the auxiliary to help spot people and get food and sandwiches and things like that's always helpful,
Right.
But in concept, it's a good idea, just some things to work out.
And you've been talking about doing this for a few years now.
Yeah, like I said, over the years, I've had several from within the community that have just said, hey, we want to help and we want to be a part of something. We don't want to spend 2 years in school to basically be a part of the department, but they still want to volunteer and help and assist and helping with, Fire Prevention Week and, classes out at the school and things like that we do, and,
your fundraisers and...
Festival in the Park fundraisers and all of that kind of stuff that's non-emergency, related activities is really the goal, behind this group, so.
Last question for me, does this add to your plate, take things off your plate, or does your plate stay the same?
It'll add a little bit, but, I think, ultimately, in the long run, I think it's a help and a benefit, because, so, as like that org chart that's there, right now, those fire corps leads would report to me, but, hopefully down the road, the larger and more established this group becomes, they would report to, another officer of the department, and then, and then go from there, so.
I ask because it's always nice to give those leadership opportunities to some of the other volunteers.
Yeah, yep.
That are looking to move up the ranks over time, but also we don't want to add more to your plate that you already have.
All right. Well, thank you. That's a lot of information, and we got more to look through. If you can get back
Yeah,
on some of those others, that'd be awesome.
yep, I'll look into that and get some of that, and I'll just send it to Tim, so he can
Yeah.
share that with the group.
Appreciate that.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is the low potency ordinance draft.
Yeah, included in your package, you've got a copy of a local, low potency ordinance. You may have seen this, the Post Bulletin or the local news. Olmsted County has recently approved theirs. had a public hearing in here in Dodge County for Dodge counties. It's very similar to Dodge counties. We're not allowed to be less restrictive than them, so most of the terminology is the same, but this does allow us to register people locally in the city. This would cover anyone who's selling those low-potency products, which those are currently being sold, gummies, some of the drinks. So, for example, the Casson liquor store would be, you know, they're gonna be required by the state to register anyways when the rules are all promulgated, but, so that's what this is. You know, when you can take a look at it, let me know if you have any questions. We'd be looking at having a public hearing on this later in the spring.
So if you get any questions, reach out to Tim. All right, snow ordinance discussion.
A couple of meetings ago, we discussed the Casson snow ordinance, and we just want to bring that back and try to let you know and show you kind of what some other cities in our areas do. Linda did some research, and I reached out to a couple of my colleagues too, and we got a couple of local policies there. I think we have 3 or 4 at least in the packet there. You know, if you have questions on those, you know, there's always room for improvement with our ordinance, and I certainly think we can. A lot of it is similar, you know, it's a sort of a judgment call on when you plow from staff within certain confines, certain, you know, 2 inches. You know, the one thing that I think we're always gonna try and do a better job is communicating. Those snow emergencies, that's always been a little bit of a nebulous thing where we say, you know, if it's snowing, you know, it's a snow emergency. Well, it doesn't mean necessarily plowing. This year wasn't too bad, last year wasn't too bad, but in past years we have had. And the problem is those snowfalls, when it's really snowing, people get their car off the road. They know it. You know, if you're gonna get 12 inches of snow, that isn't a question. It's when you get to that 2-3 inches mark where some people might be a problem. So, I mean, I guess if there's any questions on that, or if we'd like to take a look at it in depth and look at changing language or anything like that, we'd be glad to take suggestions and do a workup. But, you know, it is kind of general in terms of everyone has their own little thing, but a lot of the same things are encompassed in the policies.
I do agree with Brian's statement that ours, as is the other ones you've got in here, it does not say a specific amount of snow. So, you know, my concept of a heavy snow is 1 inch. Your concept of a heavy snow is a lot more than that. So it would be helpful if we could try to figure out some way to be a little more definitive, particularly with these new housing groups coming in, like these apartments, where you're gonna have people needing to park on the street.
Sure. I mean, we do typically, I mean, in our policy, 2 inches is a guidance for when we'll plow.
Okay.
And that's what most cities in our areas have. Of course, 2 inches of wet snow that melts on the ground versus, you know, and I will say there are times when we plow certain parts of town, you know, I don't think, well, Ryan, you might live a little, you're more of the edge, I'm on the edge. Those edge parts of town, like 16th Street, tend to blow in more. So you might be in, you know, downtown or close to downtown, you might only have 1 inch, and it's easy to drive on. Out on 16th Street or the dump road or something like that, it might have blown in, it might be slick. You know, we had a couple of slick snow, so yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but yeah, I mean, 2 inches, and that's kind of what we laid out. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm open to suggestions. Now's a good time to provide feedback. You know, obviously, I'm crossing my fingers. I don't think we have any more snow forecast for this year, you know. But yeah, no, it's gonna be 70 on like Saturday, so don't worry. But, and if it does fly, it'll melt quick. But, so now's a good time to make those changes so we can put it out to the public, you know, this fall before we have more snow.
But I do like the fact that we can start alerting people through the alert, and if we get maybe a way to, excuse me, refresh the public on how that works and help be able to get them to sign up for it.
Sure.
You know, if we can do.
Well, you know, we put it on social media. I mean, there isn't a great way to get people to sign up. You know, we can put it out, we've put it out in the utility bills, you know, sign up for e-notifications. You know, one thing that we'll be doing this year we'll be sending it out to the TV stations. A lot of times TV stations, not everyone checks that, but a lot of times TV stations have you know, City of Stewartville or City of Casson is, you know, it's a snow emergency, just like they have school closings and stuff, they have a whole list of that. And so, you know, I know that, for example, at the library in the past, when they've closed, they send it out to the TV station, and that's something we're gonna be doing this fall, or this next snow cycle. So, yeah, I mean, the e-notifications is great, you get notified, you know, well, if you get emails from the city, I don't know if you want all those, but you get notified that we're gonna be out, and it's a snow emergency, and that's the best solution, really, for folks, I think.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe I'm guilty of not doing my research from when I got ticketed, but I think what I would like to see is just like us declare a snow emergency, put some sort of time frame on it, and I know snow emergencies are usually based off of predicted snowfall, and that's fine, that's what it is. Put some sort of time frame so citizens know when they cannot be parked on the street. And that can always change, obviously, you know, all of a sudden the snow's done, or all of a sudden the storm is slowing down over us and staying for another 2 hours, but it's just so vague that I don't love it how it is, so I guess that's what I would like to see. I don't know
Any of the
if
other
it's feasible.
policies that you know, included, did they, any of them, I mean, when I read through them, I mean, they all have pluses and minuses, you know, so it's, there's no perfect policy on it, but like I said, you know, it's a great time now to be reviewing it, and
Yeah.
if we wanna make some changes, I mean, typically what we try to do is, like you said, we look at the forecast, and if we declare, you know, I know that usually our plow crews will come in at 3 o'clock, you know, depending on how bad it is, they may come in at 2 o'clock, you know, to plow, and then, you know, usually they plow until it's clear,
Yeah.
which is, you know, 12 hours. So, you know, that's something, you know, we can certainly put out in our notices better and make it more clear to people, so.
Yeah, and I don't want ours to become like what Rochester does, where every week you have to park on a different side of the street. and,
No.
You know, that's way too confusing,
Yep, I agree.
you know. So-
But I'd just like it a little more clear, so the citizens know, hey, I need to find somewhere to put my car, 'cause the city thinks it's gonna snow a bunch, so.
Well, and I mean, you know.
And that's the hard part, because they might predict it, it's gonna snow, and then it goes.
Yep. But at least then if you already have the snow emergency, and even if it doesn't snow, then, like, people already know that I can't have my car.
Yeah, I mean, we may be able to suggest, you know, the park and ride or something like that. You know, one thing that's coming down from the legislature is, you know, a lot of these new subdivisions, that the state's gonna tell us that we can't mandate parking
Yep.
requirements. So they're gonna say, you can't say you have to have 2.1 or, you know, 1.25 parking stalls. And so, some of the new subdivisions are gonna have very limited parking, you know, especially apartment complexes. So those folks, you know, they're gonna need to know to put their cars someplace else. And I don't know how they're gonna deal with it up in Minneapolis, they'll find a way, I guess. They'll have lots full of towed cars, but, you know, we wanna prevent that from,
Yeah.
I mean, our goal is never to tow somebody, that isn't the point. It
Yep.
doesn't help us, it doesn't help them.
Yep.
You know, we wanna make sure it's clear, so.
Yep.
Anyway, if you've got other feedback, let me know. Otherwise, you know, we'll try and, do some red line changes, and I'll talk to Charlie and staff and see if he's got any recommendations too, and, we'll have something for you, you know, before we have another snowfall, hopefully.
Sounds good.
I think Byron's policy has pretty, good definition of snow emergency, maybe not what we want, but they at least define it's 3 inches of snow or more, snow has been drifting, it's icy, and the snow, it says, in relationship to heavy use of the street, so I would assume that would be, you know, daylight hours. I like all of those, and maybe we wanna tweak what they have, but that gives somebody who may not have seen the preemptive snow emergency alert go out, if they look out their window, they can see that, oh yeah, there's a lot of snow on the ground, I better go move my car, and they'll know, you know, okay, 1 inch of snow, we're probably not gonna plow, I don't need to worry about it. You know, 3 inches of snow, better do something, right? So, 'cause what we have now is just kind of a determination of the Parks Department or Streets Department, right? Which is, you know, makes sense from, you know, the fact that they gotta determine whether or not to go out. But it doesn't make sense to the people who need to make a determination whether they need to do something or not.
Yeah, I mean, I have to take a look at that exact wording, especially with you said the daylight hours.
Well, it says time of snowfall in relationship to heavy use of the street, which to me translates to daylight hours, right? So if
Not always.
you get a big snow in the middle of the night, are we expecting people to get up out of bed and move their car? You know,
I mean, the issue with that is that in Byron, they do a lot of their plow during the day.
Mhm.
They don't really come in early to
They
do plowing.
do come in on call now too, in Byron,
Okay,
and they
well,
actually,
historically, they haven't come in
Yep.
during, I mean, it's like the county doesn't go overtime for snow plowing,
Mhm.
whereas, I know, just the counterpoint would be, we already get calls from folks who are like, my road's not clear at 6 AM, because they wanna go to work.
Mhm.
And so for us to wait to start plowing until the daylight hours, it's problematic for us.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we should maybe, 6 o'clock, I'm fine if we wanna put a cutoff there, say 5:30, 5 o'clock, whatever, but I think it needs to be clear in the policy of when, you know, they're in violation of an ordinance and could be ticketed.
Sure. No, I think, you know, saying, declaring a time for like when the snow emergency starts, I think that's certainly something we can look at doing. You know, and we do it, I mean, our notices this spring we did it, but yeah, I mean, part of it is like, our guys will get out and they'll start plowing at 2 AM.
Yeah, and
Whereas not every community does
I don't
that.
think we should preclude the streets department from going out and working early. I think we should, if they choose to do that, we shouldn't be ticketing people for being on the street at 2 AM.
Okay.
That's what I'm
you're
saying.
getting at, okay.
That's kinda what I'm getting at, right?
Sure.
We gotta give them a chance to have potentially missed this, you know,
Yeah.
not everybody checks the weather every day, you know?
Or declare a snow emergency in time for people who go to bed early enough.
Right, so I just wanna have a little more leeway in those instances where, you know, it might be difficult, somebody, maybe they were on second shift, they came home, they fell asleep, you know, they don't know that it's gonna snow at 3 in the morning. I just wanna have a little bit more leniency
Well,
there.
we gotta watch that.
There would be some
Sorry.
changes to the, and I'm sorry, yep. I mean, I'll have to talk to Charlie and see what he thinks.
Well-
You know, and part of it is, that would require some functional changes to how they clear. You know, right now, we clear curb to curb, and they start at, you know, 2 AM or 3 AM, and they just go. And the way we do it, as you know, Paul, a lot of times we use the grader.
Mhm.
So that does change a little bit compared to some other communities where they might use a regular snowplow. But, I mean, not to say, like I said, definitely some room for
Just-
improvement on policy and
Just something to
process.
think about. It's-
No, I appreciate that.
All I'm
That's why I
asking.
included him here, because like I said, everybody does it a little differently.
We'll have to talk to Charlie on that, on the two. In past, they've always started at 2 or 3 in the morning. If you push it off to where people don't have to move their vehicles until 6, your city staff is gonna be overburdened on trying to clear. You're gonna have more issues with cars plowed in, because the city, and then you're gonna have to come back and plow again, so now you're spending more time. You know, we have to talk to Charlie on it, but if you park on the street, they can't, they're gonna go around it and they're gonna bury it in. So so if you make it a snow emergency and have them move when we start plowing, it's gonna benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, the feedback, the takeaway I have is, you know, calling it earlier, you know, and, you know, setting some times. You know, obviously, it's weather dependent, but, you know, if we can call it by noon the previous day, hopefully that's enough time for folks to have the opportunity. You know, getting it out through multiple channels, I mean, we'll always try to do that. Like I said, our goal is not to tow those cars. It
No.
doesn't benefit anybody.
Nobody.
But it's to try and, you know, make it easy for the snow plowing service. So, and those are definitely some things we can incorporate, you know, for this policy. And I will run it past, you know, our plowing, I don't plow the snow. I don't necessarily deal with those challenges, thankfully, on every daily basis. So I mean, I wanna make sure that Charlie and the feedback from the public works staff is taken into account too. But I appreciate all the comments, because, I mean, this is how we can build a better policy.
If we set a minimum for snow, does that mean we don't send the plows out if it's not meeting that minimum? It's not windy, it's not icy, it's just 2.9 inches of snow. Do we not send them, and then we have people calling because we didn't plow? Well, it's under 3 inches, we didn't declare a snow emergency.
I mean, you're gonna get calls, no matter
You'll
what.
get calls no matter
on
what,
either
it's,
side.
to me, it just seems like, as adults, we should all be able to pay attention to the things around us and be aware of our surroundings. Yes, have a policy in place, but people are going to nitpick any policy we adjust, create, because it didn't suit their needs at that time. So I change the policy as needed, but at the same time, expect adults to function and do their job.
It is hard.
Well, and I don't think the ordinance in any way would handcuff the city from plowing when they want to. It should just be to give the citizens guidance on when they need to get their cars off the street. So if the plows wanna go out for 2 inches, because, for whatever reason, then they're just gonna have to go around the cars, because that's the way the ordinance
Yep.
is stated, so.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next is looking at turn back of property to Dodge County, and Tim will...
Sure, well, I think you've got a council action sheet in there. This was something that I think we talked about briefly earlier. Dodge County had requested a parcel that they had transferred to us earlier, and, you know, it was originally for a backage road behind Quick Trip. And there's some right-of-way that will have to be dealt with in a different process, because it's, you know, county right-of-way, or it's highway right-of-way, but this parcel is able to be transferred back to them. So we're recommending that, and you see the map of the parcel there, we're recommending that be returned to the county. They've already utilized it. I think they've already built a gravel road that accesses their county park
They have.
area down there, so it's functionally something they're already utilizing, and we don't have any objection to that.
It does no benefit to the city at all to have it. At one time, we thought that was for a future road back there, which now the county owns the property back there, so we don't need access anymore.
That's right.
Do we have any plowing requirements or any maintenance requirements that we have to do after we get rid of, or give this back to the county?
You know, we never were plowing that, it's not a road.
It's not a road.
It was just a right-of-way, so,
It was a-
yeah. But a good question, because that may come up with our other turnbacks that we'll be looking at later this year.
So, do you need a motion on that?
Yeah, so we have a motion on that, to approve that turnback. I think the resolutions, or maybe not the resolution, but they're just a motion to do that.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, Linda's got a resolution there, so.
Yep, that's it. Sorry, I didn't, I was...
That's all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to return that parcel back to the Dodge County.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Brian? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, no new business. Administrators report.
Just a couple of things to highlight tonight. Budget cuts. It's, sounds like the legislature is, you know, they're gonna be cutting. So, we're preparing for that. Sarah and I are working with, ClearGov on the budget program. We did a meeting with them today, and, our own local budgets, we're already working on that too to prepare for it. So, you know, we don't know what that'll look like in this biennium. They're not that, they have a small surplus forecast, so it sounds like they're gonna cut harder on this one, and then that'll hopefully make it a little easier on their next biennium. But so we're preparing for that right now. We talked about the EDA, the TIF district tonight, so, you know, that'll be another project that, will be coming. We have a lot of activity in town this year. We had the open house last night, of course, and I think they're already working on the street today, milling and doing different things, so I know that, with the good weather, they're raring to go, to get things going out there. So, some recommended changes from the, and I had emailed the council about this, looking at the banking situation, with some of the changes that have come down the line. I know Sarah's, recommending that we'd maybe look to, smoothing that out a little bit. I think it's a good idea. So, we'll study that a little bit more, but right now, the gist would be to possibly go with one bank for all the accounts. So, anyway, we'll bring that back for approval from council here at some time this summer. Just see here, what else I got in here? A lot of different changes related to bonding projects. Thankfully, you know, that won't affect us, but in the future, if we request bonding dollars, it's likely they'll require a plan be submitted with that to see how it will be maintained and paid for. That's something something they're gonna require. And then the Dodge County, or Dodge Center Ambulance, I attended that meeting last week, and, you can see my comments there. So I'm just gonna continue watching that issue, you know, been talking with the mayor about that and see what comes out of the legislature, if anything, this year. And, at some point in time, they probably will make a request from us, for some sort of support, for their financial situation. I also included in the packet the handout for, our annual review we completed with Enterprise. So a lot of good information there with the city's fleet. You know, obviously, we're always trying to keep that up. One thing that we've seen is that the prices are coming down, or at least they were. We'll see what happens this year. They're not expecting a lot of changes this year. The resale prices also come down, but if you'll go to, let's see here. I think I've got it in here. Yeah, so if you go towards the end of that last slide there, basically our depreciation, effective average depreciation is about $4,000, which what that means is that the cost of ownership for us is about $4,000 in the vehicles that we've been acquiring and then selling, you know, so, which is great because it means that over a 4-year period, you know, we're really only spending $1,000 a year to own that vehicle because the resale is so high off of the vehicle. So it's turned out to be a pretty good for us in terms of the city finances. So anyway, we don't know if that'll continue with but I suspect the resale market will probably turn up again with some of the issues that are going on at the federal level. So anyway, just some things to highlight that. And then I wanted to highlight, we talked about it at the last meeting. Once again this month, we've had a lot of reported issues with the U.S. Mail Service with utility bills. You know, I know I received mine on, I think, last week on Friday. Last month, I didn't get it till the 27th, but it was mailed 30 days before that. So, we just encourage people to sign up for e-bills if you haven't already, because we cannot guarantee the U.S. Mail Service. Unfortunately, the last 2 months have been, and it's sporadic. it's no one area of town that's, getting missed or not getting the bills on time. We try to be flexible, and we tell people, if they didn't receive their bill, to come in and pick up a bill, or we'll email it to them. But we do encourage people to sign for e-bills, because it'll come the same day that it's generated then, and you won't have to worry about it, so.
Is the city still doing, or are we looking back and doing potential discount, like a
Yeah, we are. Right
credit?
now, we just did this whole week has been sort of tech week for us with the turnover to the cloud, and so that's been interesting. Always, anytime you implement something new, I think in the next couple of months that the programs they had, the BMS pay and things like that will be implemented, and that's when we want to offer that to people to get them to come over to do the e-billing.
Okay.
But you can change, anytime you can come over to e-billing, and we just know that we've had a lot of people call and say, hey, we didn't get our bill. And some of the same people, they got their bill right away last month, they didn't get it this month. So it's just, the U.S. mail is struggling right now, and I think everyone knows that, and we don't want people to miss out on that bill, so.
Because it's gonna benefit them and the city.
Well, absolutely. It benefits us, and they get their bill right away. So, I mean, it's good for everybody. That's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to take those.
That'll be good. And next, engineers report,
All
Brandon.
right, well, thank you, Mayor and Council. Pretty short items tonight. In your council packet is the open house flyer for our Southwest Reconstruction there. We did our open house last night. Pretty well received. We had a map of the plans laid out on the tables there. Went through with the property owners. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Igler attended, along with some staff, so thought it was pretty well attended. We do have a link there to the city website that is our construction updates. So not only this project, but all of our projects planned for this year on the city's website. So we're gonna use that as the place to go to get updates. We're gonna send weekly updates for this project and keep them on that website. So I understand citizens can sign up for updates, and they'll get the updates sent to them in their email if we update it. So we're planning on doing that direction. You can see the project contacts are on there with Mark Toon, our construction observer. Just like all of our reconstruction projects, we tell the citizens to call Mark first, the contractor Trevor Lamplin second, me third, and council fourth if needed, because we direct council to tell the citizens to talk to the engineers, because that's what you guys are paying us to do. And they know firsthand where the contractor's at, and it can change within minutes. This is the nature of construction, so that's what we've directed the citizens to do. So that's that. Mark does also live in town. He's a Casson kid, so he's around and available. So along with Trevor too, he lives in town. So that's great that we got local people working on our local projects, and a little extra care there with their citizens. So a lot of construction stuff in there, and there is a phasing plan that is kind of the phase to start between Plaza 57 and Casey's, and then work west and then south back to kind of Highway 14 and phase that. And I think like we discussed when we did the approving the plans, continually working in one phase with the utilities until it's a gravel road, and then come back later for concrete when people can get back in their driveways and whatnot. So once you start a phase, stay in a phase until it's kind of built back up, because nobody likes to have their neighborhood tore apart and no working. So if you work in that phase, you're at least making an effort to do it. So that's the highest level. Any questions, comments, concerns, I'll be happy to answer them. It'll be a full summer of a mess down there, but we'll work through it the best we can, so.
Oh, just one comment I had from last night's open house. From the feedback I got from the people, they understand it's gonna be an inconvenience, and they sounded happy, pleased per se, that they have somebody they can contact, and Brandon reassured them if they sign up for emails that they would get updates faster than, so there was people that were looking at that because they want to make sure they know when they're going to get affected, and they also understand that the project can get delayed due to weather, and they understood it, but yeah.
It's nature of construction and nature.
But yeah, it seemed, that was the comments I got.
One other item to that, I'll bring business cards in the construction handouts, have them at City Hall, so when he stops by City Hall, so I get some extra copies. So we handed out business cards for Mr. Lamplin and Mr. Toon, so first point of contact.
Thank you.
Second item tonight, in your council packet is a email from Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We were awarded $90 or just under $90,000 there for our small communities planning grants for stormwater, wastewater, community resilience. That was something we submitted, I think, in January for our Maston Creek sanitary sewer trunk line, improvements. That project has been on our capital improvement plan since our flooding in 2019. We highly suspect that that trunk line that goes from the treatment plant all the way up Maston Creek, to the railroad trestle, along First, where a lot of the houses, we're backed up into, where we have, 3 sanitary sewer lines that all come together and collect into one pipe. So we're looking at upsizing that pipe, again, starting at the treatment plant all the way up Maston Creek, to help reduce the frequency of sanitary sewer backups into homes. So that was, part of our action plan out of the 2019 flooding incident. Previous council, like some of you guys were on the council at the time, but previous council, really put us to work on coming up with plans, and hence why you've seen a lot of the sump pump inspections, the, sanitary sewer improvement projects that we've done, and this was one of the projects that was, a long-term project. Not only when it does flood, when we get that high groundwater, rainwater getting in the sanitary sewer, backing up that line, it's also needed in dry weather too for growth. So it's gonna be needed even if we were to seal our sewer up, as that area is highly suspected to be developed, that feeds that sewer. The Vail apartments that we've built all feed to that, kind of 60% of our town. Actually, about 75% of the town drains down that trunk line. So as we grow south of 14, we're adding more sewer to it. So, I think it's gonna be a great project to get started on. So this, obviously, $90,000 is not gonna get the whole sewer built. It is about a $3 million project that we've been looking at. But it's gonna help us get the survey completed, look at the floodplain model, because it has changed, in recent years, to see where that is in relation to our sanitary sewer. Because some of those manholes are underwater, during flooding, so then how do we protect the sewer from flooding itself, not only, from the homes, the collection system in town, but that trunk main that's along the creek when the creek comes up, to protect that. Start some preliminary design and have some public engagement. So about $150,000, which we showed in the application, 90 of which is gonna be funded, and there'll be a 60% or $60,000 match to kind of get that scope work I just described. So I think it's a good step to get that project going. We don't necessarily have it scheduled for construction yet. We'll see how kind of everything goes with our construction projects this year, but, I think it's great to get some help, through the MPCA, so. And assuming staff will submit these exhibits C and D unless directed otherwise.
That was the question I was just gonna ask you. So,
That's the plan. No, I just want to show, we do go out for grants, and we try to get those so we can bring money back to, the community. So I think it's, really good. Appreciate staff working on that, with us here at City Hall.
Lastly, if you don't mind, Mayor, our 2025 street project that's out for bids, that's gonna bid next Friday, the 18th. April 23rd at your council meeting, we'll have, calling the hearing on the assessments to send the notices out to the paper and the property owners. And I think it's May 14th, the assessment hearing is scheduled, so I'm just letting you guys know that rocking and rolling on our side of things, and we do have a fair amount of bidders on that project, so still a pretty attractive bidding environment currently, so we'll be here next meeting with that, so.
thank you.
That's all I had.
All right. Nothing under personnel. Attorney, nothing. Correspondence, anybody got any questions or on that? If not, then I guess we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I just have one thing to
sorry.
add quick before we adjourn. Sorry, Ryan, you ready? Yeah, Brandon mentioned the 14th, so we are looking at an audit presentation that night also.
Oh, yes.
So what we're looking at doing is a work session at 5 o'clock on the 14th, or if it doesn't work right at 5:15, to try and have that audit work session audit presentation before our regular meeting, and then we would accept those audit results, during the meeting itself, but, we know that we have that public hearing for the assessment, so we don't wanna, force everyone to stay for the whole audit, even though it may be absolutely rapt attention to it, but, sometimes it makes sense to make that a little earlier. So that's what we're planning right now, if that works for council members.
May 14th?
May 14th, yeah, 5 PM.
Just, if you could send a reminder when it gets closer.
Absolutely.
Because I'm guilty, I don't look at the start time on the agendas.
Sounds good.
So, on that, can we take a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.